Welcome back. I'm speaking with Siobhan O'Connor, co-author of the book No More Dirty Looks, The Truth About Your Beauty Products and the Ultimate Guide to Safe and Clean Cosmetics on Your Supernatural Life. For a podcast of the show, go to yoursupernaturallife.com. So I was just playing I've Got You Under My Skin for a reason because, I think people really need to understand that what we put on our skin goes in us. And so, Siobhan, talk about what we need to be concerned about in terms of the health effects that these chemicals are having on us.
Yeah, it's a tricky question because when you ask scientists, can X cause Y, they'll never tell you. They'll never tell you yes, and for good reason. That's not the way that science works. But what we can say is that Alexandra and I, when we were researching No More Dirty Looks, spent a lot of time looking at the research that is available from epidemiologists, toxicologists, chemists, scientists of all stripes, looking at the effects that the chemicals used in the products that we use every single day may have on the body. Of course, a lot of these tests are conducted on animals, and we're humans. So, like the data is. It's not conclusive, but the stuff like the data that is sort of emerging now is starting to look like, if we look at something like phthalates, which is a plasticizer that's used in a lot of fragrance and hairsprays, things that either to make our hair make our hair stiff or make fragrances stick to us for long periods of time, like a perfume or like any scented lotion under the sun or scented hair product. Phthalates are hormone disruptors. This is proven in humans. So no, we're not talking about rats and mice here. They are hormone disruptors in humans. They're estrogenic. They trick the body into thinking that they basically it's so hard to explain. I'm sorry. They basically hack the body in a way and make the body think that there's more estrogen in there than your body is naturally producing.
Right. I think
over long periods of time, this is problematic.
Right. And people should know that phthalates are not going to be found on the label. So a clue is if you see the word fragrance, like you were saying, that would be a cue that you kind of pay attention to that. So what are some, you mentioned sodium lauryl sulfate. What are some of the other worst chemicals being used today that we should kind of, have a red flag when we look on labels?
Well, formaldehyde is an obvious one, which we talked about with the Brazilian blowout. But it's also, there are certain preservatives like, for example, DMDM hydantoin and quaternium-15, which are very widely used preservatives that, again, you won't find it on the label because they themselves are not formaldehyde, but they're what are called formaldehyde donors. So they can leach formaldehyde into the product. So, it gets really tricky, which is why, as much as we think it's important to familiarize yourself with ingredients and with labels, it's really kind of, you got to get rid of all of them. And the good thing is that the bad ingredient, quote unquote bad ingredients, tend to be lumped together in the same things.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
I know what I hate is that some companies will say, paraben free or whatever, but they don't really clean up the other stuff that you're talking about. It just looks like, oh, this must be safe. It has no parabens in it, which are those antimicrobial preservatives. But so it's confusing for consumers. So you're saying to get rid of all of the conventional products and go for the all natural organic.
I think absolutely. I just don't think at this stage, I don't think in the market there's a middle ground. There's a lot of greenwashing going on. Like you said, there's a lot of paraben-free or low sulfate. Like, what does that mean? The average person doesn't know what high sulfate is or what a sulfate is. So what is a low sulfate shampoo? Like, what does that mean other than just sort of trickery? They're trading on the idea that we've heard sulfates are bad, so if it says low sulfates, that must be fine, But we don't know. We don't know what concentration these things are being used in. And you mentioned parabens, which are, preservatives. I think they're very problematic. They're estrogenic. I don't think they should be in any of our products. And they'll replace that with another chemical that maybe we know even less about.
Exactly.
That's been less tested.
Right.
So we really, the more, people like to say, well, you can't just say natural. It's not that black and white, and it's not. But the more natural ingredients, in my opinion, the better, and the fewer ingredients, the better. So maybe it's a good segue to talk about DIY, because that's one of the things that Alexandra and I love is, learning how to make some of our own products so that we can save money and really control what we're using.
So why don't you give us a couple of tips on that?
Sure. So we have a few of our favorite recipes. So, for example, Alexandra, for a while ago, decided to stop washing her hair with any with any store-bought cleansers, and started using honey. So she had actually bought a cleanser that had honey in it and baking soda and a couple of other things, and she thought, well, what if I just got some raw honey and some baking soda and mixed them together? And she did a little reading as to the effectiveness of this in terms of cleaning the skin, and that's now her face wash. So she mixes literally just like raw honey. She puts, let's say, a tablespoon of it in the palm of her hand with about a teaspoon or a little bit less of baking soda, mixes it together. It sort of forms this white, foamy, kind of frothy paste, and she uses that to clean. And it's great because honey it helps retain moisture, but at the same time, it's like our nature's oldest antibiotic. They used to use it to dress wounds.
Right.
So
that's excellent.
It's a great sort of for problem skin as well.
Fabulous.
I make my own body scrub because I used to sort of look forward to Christmas and holidays hoping that someone would give me a sort of like fancy body scrub because they're very expensive and I didn't like to buy them myself. And one day I thought, okay, let me just try this. And it's like the simplest thing, and all of the ingredients you already probably have in your kitchen. So mix brown sugar and or salt. If you have eczema, don't use salt. Obviously, it would sting. But yeah, so brown sugar and or salt with any oil of your choice. I use either coconut or olive oil, and I use vanilla extract because I love the way that it smells, and literally just mix those ingredients together and bring it in the bath, and it does make the floor slippery, so be careful. But it makes a really amazing body scrub, and for the fraction of a price that you would spend buying it from a store.
That's fabulous. And you can buy the salt, in bulk at food stores. So
exactly. And sugar too. It doesn't have to be a fancy brown sugar like a rock sugar or anything like that. Just sort of regular in bulk sugar. And oils, coconut oil, jojoba oil. Those are the more sort of affordable. Olive oil obviously can get quite expensive. So whatever you can afford, whatever you like.
I've been experimenting with the deodorant, and I've come up with coconut oil and baking soda, and I make it into a paste, and it works beautifully. It's really great.
That's amazing. We've tried baking soda alone, which is good, except that it's a little messy. So that sounds great. I'll try that.
Yeah. And then talk a little bit about how it might be hurting the planet. The stuff that the conventional products, because people are throwing it out and going into landfill and going down the drain, and how else?
Well, exactly. So I think there's a couple of ways to reduce reduce the harm that you're putting on the planet with your products. One is to buy less, definitely. Just buy fewer products, because if you don't finish it, or if you do, you're throwing out the plastic in most cases. A lot of it is not recyclable. And then the big thing is be really conscious. What's bad for our bodies is also bad for the planet. And so it's everything that you're putting on yourself is either washing down the drain into the water, or if it gets into the body, a lot of it still eventually leaves the body through our urine. So, it gets into our waterways. If you look at something like chemical sunscreens, like this is a sort of startling example, but coral reefs are imperiled all over the globe, and they're saying now that within 50 years, if we don't change course, it will be, irreparable harm will be done. And one of the things that has been found to be killing coral reefs is the chemicals found in sunscreen that are washing off of swimmers' bodies or washing off of us into the shower, into the water. And like that's something that you don't think about. It seems so far away, you to the coral reef, but by doing something simple like switching to titanium dioxide and zinc oxide as a sunscreen, if more people did, it would be things like that. Like it really adds up, and it really makes a difference.
It really does. Yeah, and I have a
things.
Go ahead.
No, there are also there are certain chemicals that don't, once they're introduced into nature, they don't ever go away. So it's, they don't get diluted. They don't biodegrade, even if it says, biodegradable. Like that generally doesn't mean anything, or it could mean it'll biodegrade in 500 years, which does the planet absolutely no good.
Right.
So,
and I just wanted to say, because we only have about a minute left, but
Sure.
women who are pregnant really need to pay attention to what you're saying and what we're talking about today too, because the chemicals go into the bloodstream, into the placenta, and the babies are being born, already polluted.
Exactly.
So important.
What they call pre-polluted, and it's really, really upsetting.
Yes.
And women who want to have babies down the line, and men too, because they're showing now that what men do, it affects the sperm, and then that affects the development of the baby as well.
Right. Well, I want to thank you so much, Siobhan.
Thank you.
And so I've been talking to Siobhan O'Connor. She's the co-author of the book No More Dirty Looks, and you can find it. You want to give your website?
Yeah, sure. It's nomoredirtylooks.com, and you can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/nomoredirtylooks, and we update both every single day, and we interact with our readers, and we have a lot of fun. So It's a really lively community, and we definitely encourage people to come check it out.
Thank you. Okay, great. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening today. For podcasts and more information on my show, visit yoursupernaturallife.com. You can also download it on iTunes. My book, Supernatural Home, is endorsed by Deepak Chopra, Ralph Nader, Dr. Joseph Mercola, and many others. You can find it on Amazon or on my website, supernaturalmom.com. If you type in supernaturalmom.com/free gift, you can download a free 20-question quiz from my book to help you determine where, when, and how you are unwittingly being exposed to dangerous chemicals from everyday products in your home. Plus, you'll get tips on turning your home into a safe haven with my 10 easy ways to have a supernatural home. See you here next week. Remember, have a supernatural life. I'm Beth Greer.